Jennifer Matsuki from the New York Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. Welcome.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Hi, thank you so much, Patrick.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you so much for introducing us. I'm Jennifer Medina Matsuki. I'm the Director of HIV Social Marketing and Community Engagement for the City of New York, and I pass it to my colleague.
Hi, I'm Ilona Charkow, and I'm the Director of the New York City Condom Availability Program, and super excited to be here today.
So we'll be kicking off our presentation really by giving you, thank you, Patrick. That was a great introduction to our work. We have been running the New York City Condom Availability Program now, I think, between Ilona and I, the last 13 or 14 years. And so, yes, we had the pleasure of going across the United States a few years ago when we were a CBER provider, which we still are, for the Northeast and for Puerto Rico. But when we were CBER providers for CBOs and government entities, I believe it was the first and second round of CBA funding, or like current CBA funding, we were able to work with beautiful and amazing colleagues to do over 15 institutes all over the United States and 2 in Puerto Rico to help outline condom distribution as a structural level intervention and all of the pieces of the puzzle that pull it all together. And I think one of the things that is incredible is that our program also moved into an umbrella of social marketing and community engagement, which only allowed us to further expand our access to the 3 A's and to be really aligned with some of the additional work that we do here at the New York City Department of Health. And additionally, I think when we're talking about moving pieces, when the pieces fell apart in February, March 2020, knowing all of the pieces helped us put it back together and helped us have a half a puzzle for about a year and a half and working on a full puzzle moving forward. So I'm going to ask, I'm sharing my screen. Ilona is looking at hers as well. So any questions, please put them in the chat. And then when I stop sharing my screen after the thank you slide, we'll be happy to go through the chat, and or also at the very end, you can unmute yourselves and we'll be happy to answer any questions. So for those of you who may not know, I mean, we're like solidly in the East Coast, right? New York City, we knew that there was COVID or community spread at some point at the end of January and February, but the city itself did not shut down until March 17th. So we were preparing for what we thought might be a pandemic, right? And we were slowly trying to figure out what we were going to do. COVID completely changed the way we provide services, not only in New York City, but in all communities. We were challenged to change our programming. We were challenged to go home transparently without the technology we needed to continue to do our work. We were challenged to go home, like everyone else on this call, to apartments and homes that we were not prepared to stay in for months and months on end. And the lockdown completely affected our programming because a large majority of the condom distribution that we do occurs in community, in non-traditional venues, and in a variety of settings. And during quarantine and lockdown, those were closed, right? And so when we were attempting to figure out how to continue to do our condom distribution work, we were also trying to figure out how to continue to do community engagement work. And with large gatherings effectively banned, with a curfew in place in New York City for quite a few weeks, we had to figure out different ways to do that. And much like everyone else has spoken about, we went to different social media platforms and things like that, but that doesn't always work, right, for condom distribution because you need product, right? So we were sent home on March 17th. That is St. Patrick's Day, and that is a really, I still think about it to this day. It was a very interesting day, and one of the top 5 of my life. I was sitting at my desk, and all anyone could talk about at work was COVID, and we were like speaking in a way that we were like, what are we going to do? And we got an email from Dr. Barbeau, and it literally said, go home. And there's 7,500 Department of Health employees. So you can imagine other agencies and private sectors had sent some of their staff home already to like wait out for 2 weeks. But Dr. Barbeau was like, go home. And I remember walking up and going to Ilona and saying, pack what you need, because I don't know when we're going to be back, but we got to go. And like we sat and we waited for all of our staff to go home, and then we went home, and we didn't know when we would go back. And some folks said 3 months and some folks said 6 months. And, you know, about 2 years later, it's like kind of when we like rolled on back into a place that looks so very much the same, but feels very, very different, right? And so as I pass it to Ilona, what she's going to give you is a little bit of background of what the New York City Condom Availability Program is, what it looks like, what it looked like as a full structural level intervention, and how it really amassed the 3 A's, right? And then we'll walk you through how we had to take that puzzle apart and then work to put it back together again. And some parts we thought were like glued together forever, and they were not. And so we'll like walk you through how we had like break it and then put it back together.
There you go. So we show the slide every time we give this presentation. This was the strategic plan for the New York City Condom Availability Program as it was becoming a program, right? Make condoms widely available for free. Increase access to condoms for New York City-based HIV/AIDS service organizations, then increase availability, right, of condoms for clients and communities, and increase condom use in New York City. So we get very excited about this because we were practicing and promoting 2 of the 3 A's before we, even as a program ourselves, defined it as such. But we were missing one of the A's, right? We had availability and we had accessibility, and we did not have acceptability. So how do we do that? We branded our condom. Right now, if you see in the center of the screen there, the NYC blue, that's our current NYC condom, but it didn't start out that way. The first one was the one that looks like a subway. We had a partnership with the MTA. We had a huge launch event on National Condom Awareness Day, aka Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2007. We partnered with Kenneth Cole. That day we had like street outreach teams that gave out 250,000 condoms. And from that point on, on or around every February 14th, we do something to reinvigorate like trust in the brand, acceptance of the brand. And we do that throughout all the different iterations of the condom. So if you look at this, we also always have next to the very first branded condom, the Lifestyles condom, which is in the red wrapper, which is at the time the exact same condom that was in actually throughout, right up until the point where we had a new vendor that was the same condom that was in the NYC wrapper. And a lot of what we had to do at the beginning was like myth busting. People would come to our tables at community events and they'd be clamoring and clamoring and clamoring. They want that wrapper, the red wrapper, because that's the one that you could buy at the store. And they didn't necessarily want a government freebie. And actually we're at a very interesting time right now because we're in the process of writing a new RFP. Our current contracts are going to be ending, and we may end up with a new vendor, and we may start having to build, starting to work towards building acceptability again as we may change the NYC condom. And then this is just to show you a little bit more the breadth of the products that we give out. One thing that's not pictured here, in addition to the in addition to the NYC condom, we have the alternatives. We have the studded, we have the ribbed, the super sensitive, which at this time is the same as the inside is the NYC condom. We have the Legend XL, and then we also have flavored condoms. We have a variety of flavors. We have fresh mint, chocolate mint, bubblegum, chocolate strawberry, and I think pina colada. But that not shown on here. So we really try to, like, through building and continuing to build our name and brand recognition, we also really use I'm making you hungry. I see that, Patrick. I think it'll be time for lunch soon, at least in LA. So we're really trying to we also try to appeal to as many people in the communities as possible by providing options that they want. So that's just a little like background, a little information on on the products that we have available. and what our program distributes. And I didn't mention specifically, but you saw the picture on there. We also lubricant and the internal, also a big part of our program. Okay, so now next slide. So how do we distribute all these products, and how do we address the 3 A's? So first, you see here on the list, passive distribution. So when we talk about passive distribution, that's when we're talking about our web ordering system. Agencies, and historically this was really the primary way that we did our distribution. We had a web ordering system, and agencies or non-traditional sites, businesses, you had to be a verified business or faith-based organization, would go online and order products. And they still, and today, I mean, that is still definitely happening. We also have targeted distribution networks. So when we're talking about our targeted distribution networks, we have like an MSM and a dispenser network. We have our designated condom contractors who actually have contracts to replicate our program, but on a much smaller scale, where we distribute passively to about 3,500 organizations throughout New York City. They each have a network. And also everything that I'm talking about, sorry, I should have clarified this a little bit at the beginning. I'm really talking pre-pandemic and what we're working back towards, and not right now talking about what was going on during the pandemic, because obviously at that time when things were shut down and the whole city was on pause and people were in lockdown in their homes, these were not the ways that products were getting out there. So we have these contractors, and so they have a network each of approximately 150 non-traditional sites in their neighborhoods that they go and visit in person monthly and distribute product to. And instead of the agency or the non-traditional site receiving a minimum of a box of 1,000 safer sex products, they get about 250 safer sex products a visit. We also are talking about our targeted recruitment efforts, and that those are efforts where sometimes we identify a while back. I'll give you an example. We realized that infectious disease doctors didn't necessarily have our products available to patients, so we did a targeted recruitment there. Food pantries and soup kitchens, another targeted recruitment effort that we did in the past. It can also be that we're targeting a geographic area where there is a need, and we think that currently they're not accessing our products. We have a huge community presence, again, pre-pandemic, and Jen's going to talk more about our community presence, but we participate in all of the Pride events. We are available. We have an entire arm of our team that does presentations at health fairs and neighborhood events. And again, pre-pandemic, something that we haven't started up again, are the members of that team, which is our codes team, community outreach, distribution, and education services team, spend a good part of their week in the sexual health clinics where underserved New Yorkers receive care, and giving presentations about our program, very basic HIV transmission information, and handing out and making sure that people know that there is access to free safer sex products. Social marketing campaigns, again, Jen is going to talk more about those when she talks more about SMCE, but we do those on large scale and small scale. We often, if we're able to, if there's a larger scale campaign happening at the health department, we try to tie any like launch of a new product or a new service to that. And then we use social media. For NYCAP specifically, our main social media is Facebook, and we use Facebook just like anybody else would use Facebook. We want to attract people to like us. We post about events and we hope we get likes. I don't know that we've ever like really gone viral, but we definitely got a lot of likes when Stephen Colbert gave us a shout out on late night when we launched door to door. And I think that there was a time
Nick Cannon,
that was the next thing I was going to say. We offered Jen offered Nick Cannon free condoms when it was announced that he was having his 10th child.
He did.
And he wrote back, right? Yeah. So we definitely try to capitalize on every opportunity, and those were two definite highlights. Next slide. Can you go to The next slide. And
you're getting some love in your reactions there.
All right, awesome.
I'm still laughing. Sorry, I'm still laughing over the time. I'm like, it was like really ad hoc and it was really late at night. I will add that Ilona and I, while doing all of this work, have been actively activated for COVID for 2 years. And now we've also been activated to do monkeypox because of our experience in community engagement, program planning, documentation, all of it. So we've been working 3 jobs, so we get a little punchy. So I'm a little punchy, I'll admit, but like I like tagged him at like 1 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, hey, at Nick Cannon, you might need some of these, like, let us know. And then like, it was a picture of him and
I think it was Pete.
Chris Hart. No,
Oh, maybe.
Someone gifted him a vending machine for condoms. And so I tagged that photo and I was like, we could fill it for you for free. It had like magnums and other things in it. And then he responded, he's like, no, I'm good. Thanks so much. But like, that's like the pinnacle of my career right now. 23 years of HIV prevention, but Nick Canning adding me, and also Dr. Ruth once added me as well. And so those, I'm done. I can.
And I think it's interesting to note that you mentioned Magnum and not Snugger Fit, right? I'm just saying, okay.
Oh, no, I didn't mention that was the condoms that were in the vending machine that was gifted to him. Yeah. Although we have all for everyone.
We do. Yeah. So it was a lot. So it was a lot of fun. And so back to the high impact prevention, what we're talking about here. So we do all of that and we try to do it strategically as well. And so that we're sure to align our goals and our priorities with, the high impact prevention strategy from the CDC. And that's what I mentioned before. I mean, this is one of like the mainstays of our program in terms of the targeted distribution, is our MSM and dispenser network. And so the venues that are part of that network, they either identify as a venue that services primarily MSM, it's MSM owned, or it's a venue that has such high foot traffic that instead of going through 1,000 safer sex products a month, they're going through about 1,000 safer sex products a week. So we have a vendor that fills that need. Oops, did you go to the next slide? Okay. And to that end, through all of those different distribution mechanisms, and again, I'm showing 2019 distribution because that was the last like pre-pandemic real numbers that we had. We're well on our way this year. I'm really happy to say to meeting these numbers again, but 2020 and 2021 were considerably lower distribution. But in total, it was just about 30 million safer sex products between the male condoms, the internal, and the packets of lubricant that we distributed. Next slide. So again, I was talking about how we target this, and we want to make sure that we are meeting the needs of the communities that we serve and that we're identifying where those needs are. So I mentioned before that we have the designated condom contractors. So these are our designated contractors. And if you notice where they're located in those really dark areas, that's where there's the highest prevalence of HIV, and incidentally in New York City, and I'm sure that this works this way in other cities as well, the areas that carry the heaviest burden of HIV infection often, have the heaviest burden of other diseases as well. So these are like our Department of Health neighborhoods as well. So we have Bronx Care, the LGBT network in Queens, Diaspora in Brooklyn, and GMHC in Manhattan. And then we have Go Card, or Go Card or Go Gorilla, and they're a guerrilla marketing company, and that's who handles the MSM and dispenser network, and they cover all 5 boroughs. We don't actually have a dedicated contractor in Staten Island, but every time that we republish the RFP, that is our hope, that we will have somebody who can meet the demand in Staten Island. But currently it's only Go Gorilla, and just just for information, like this is a prevalence map and not an incidence map. And we always look at prevalence and not incidence because prevalence is much more stable. Incidence goes, can go up and down. And then if you go to there we are on that slide, so you can see in 2019, if you do the math, just let Jersey have Staten Island. Funny. We're open to all kinds of suggestions. Oh no, but I mean, they really are the forgotten borough, and it's unfortunate. We do always have an agency in Staten Island that we partner with for large events like a National Condom Awareness Day, Global Female Condom Day, any other event when we're able to. There are a few organizations that we partner with, but none of them have been able to at this time secure a distribution contract. So we're trying to think of ways to do that. So if you look, our priority again is to distribute to HIV positive individuals and to like high risk HIV negative or HIV on status unknown. And in 2019, we did that at 87%. 87% of our distribution went to our two priority populations. And that was a significant increase from several years before that, when we were at about 79%. So we're really proud of that. So I just gave you a little overview of the contracts, what the different contracts do. And that is how they were operating right up until March 17th of 2020. And all of a sudden, like Jen said, we're sitting there and we're talking about the condom distribution contracts. We're talking, we're thinking about the health map. So for anyone who's not familiar with the NYC health map, you can go online and access the health map, and you can find different services offered by the health department. So, and one of those services you can find is where there are free safer sex products available. And up until 2020, we were like, we would just celebrate every so often. And actually for a while, consistently, we were the highest hit, right? It was that. And then it was like the flu shot, right? When people were looking for either condoms or where to get the flu shot. And come 2020, this became much more critical, which I'm going to talk a little bit about. And I'm also going to talk about how we shifted from all of those in-person trainings at the clinics and the health fairs and the neighborhood events to developing virtual condom presentations. So again, traditionally, right, as I've said a few times, we really, like, the backbone of our program was community-based distribution, and this was no longer going to work. We were concerned for the condom contractors. They were concerned. They were, back and forth between like completely shutting down and what could they do safely. So our condom contracts coordinator worked tirelessly to develop safety guidelines, started requiring PPE, hand sanitizer. They were allowing virtual visits that were never even like conceived of before. I mean, we used to have this thing, they'd have to go in, they'd have to get a signature, they'd have to take a picture of the venue. They had to, document all of this in order to get paid. All of that, we said, like, no more, right? The focus was on being able to continue to provide a service and doing it safely. We introduced a new service category called maintenance, where if, because of the way that the contracts were structured, our fear was that that what we were allowing them to do would not allow them to be paid, right? If they couldn't deliver product, they couldn't enter in the product that they were distributing, and they couldn't then, get paid from our master contractor. We introduced maintenance. So maintenance allowed them to call the venue or have an email exchange with the venue, or somehow keep tabs on the menu. On the venue, not the menu. I guess I'm hungry too, Patrick. So keep tabs on the venue and update us. And as long as they did that, we considered that a service. And we actually relied very heavily on the contractors to make sure that the health map was up to date, because we went from having hundreds, probably close to 700 venues available for safer sex product pickup on the health map to about 6. at the height of the lockdown in New York City being on pause. And those 6 venues that remained open were, I think all 6 of them actually were traditional sites that, while they were open and had safer sex products available, were not open to walk-in clients. They were open for people who had appointments and for emergencies, and that was it. So we didn't want people, running out to a place that wasn't open. So that became part of the contractors jobs. And it was a great way to continue working with them, for the agencies to keep their staff. We modified meeting requirements. And then the other thing that we did for venues that were open and wanted product, but where the contractor could not make a visit, where in the past the amount that they would order wouldn't meet the requirements to get a drop shipment, we reduced the restrictions on the drop shipments, and we made sure that they got product, and we worked with our vendor to go ahead and ship them smaller quantities. So those were some of like the main ways that we shifted. And then we realized that restructuring the contracts, even though we did that, immediately, and all the things that we started talking about immediately, it still didn't meet a lot of the needs of the individuals who previously had access to products. And I mean, basically it wasn't enough. We needed to do more. Let me go to and that's when we launched door to door, or started thinking about launching door to door. Like everything else, the idea that was, was really in fact an emergency response, and needed to be implemented immediately, took months of logistics to work out. I remember being on the phone with Jen, and she was like, we got to start delivering condoms to people's doors. And I'm like, I don't think they're going to let us do that. And she's like, we got to try and figure it out. I was like, we definitely have to try and figure it out. I don't know how it's going to happen. And then we got the go ahead, and we worked with our vendor. We worked with One Condom. A lot of it came down to budget, to economics, like everything in running a condom distribution program often does. Ideally, we would have liked to have offered everyone any variety of product that they wanted, including the internal condom. The way our program is currently structured, it's different vendors for the internal and the male condom. So we weren't able to do that. It had to be male condoms. We would have liked to have allowed people to order a variety. That was not cost effective on the vendor's part, or in timing. Like, it would have just been so difficult to mix and match those products. So we had to decide, we literally had like envelopes, and we would see how many we could stuff in for like the rate that they were giving us. And ultimately we landed on everybody could order 2 envelopes worth of products a month. Each envelope has 30 safer sex products in it of one type. Most people, it seems, wanted to order, one type of condom and one, order of lubricant, but not always. And they could do that. But really, like every decision in terms of launching that program was based in economics. We had a budget that we thought would last us. We had no idea how tremendous the response would be to this. We blew through our initial budget in the first 48 hours of launching this program. At that time, we were super fortunate to be able to secure additional funds. Since then, Jen, do you want to go to the next slide? Okay. Since then, we have given out close to 600,000 safer sex products through this program to, over 7,500 individuals. You can see here the zip codes that had the highest ordering, but we have been shut down. This part of our program has been shut down since the end of last August. And between launching in June of 20 and the end of August of 2021, we've been starting and stopping this program we had to start and stop the program several times, which has been really disappointing to us and really disappointing to the community who really came to rely on it. We have, when you go online, if you access our condom ordering webpage and you access the individual services and you try to order door to door, you'll see obviously that you can't do that right now, but you have the option of leaving your email address so that as soon as the program is up and running again, we'll be able to let you know and we'll be able to get that product out to you. We have close to 1,500 names, email addresses waiting for us. Another lesson learned. I mean, I don't know how we could have done it differently given like the impetus of this and that it was COVID and it was an emergency response, but we are now working to incorporate this service into our next RFP so that it will be a regular part of the program. There's such tremendous demand for it. People ask for it. People want it and people use it. And which is really exciting for us and also really disappointing right now that we're not able to provide it. I'm gonna go to the next one. I mentioned about transitioning our in-person presentations to virtual. So you can see here, this is these are 3 of our codes team members who do the virtual presentations. We have our fun little NYC condom background. The uptake was a little bit slow, but they really worked hard. It's a wonderful presentation. At this point, we've done over 30. We've reached over 500 participants, and we are getting requests in more to come in more and more languages. Actually, just 2 weeks ago, I think we did our first one in Mandarin with another codes team member, not pictured here, and they're doing them in Spanish and primarily though. Still in English, but it's really taking off. And I think that it's also reflective of businesses reopening, agencies reopening, people coming back to their agencies, wanting these services, not necessarily yet being fully comfortable being in person. We actually haven't received, outside of like asking us if we're going to table at Pride and things like that have started again and that Jen's going to talk more about. We haven't received so many asks for in-person. People are really enjoying the virtual and feeling like it's a really good answer. And now I'm gonna turn it over to Jen.
Hello, and I'm back. Jennifer Medina Matsuki. Thank you, Ilona. That was great. Thank you for walking us through what is a huge program in like 7 slides. So I know it's never a small feat. Just to give some very small background on how we increased the 3 A's for NYCAP, we were part of the prevention program for many years, HIV prevention in the Bureau of HIV. And then about 7 years ago, there was a restructuring and we became part of the unit or program of social marketing and community engagement. And for us, it made a lot of sense. A lot of our work and our programming, while it was HIV prevention, lived so much in social marketing and community engagement, and it really augmented the 3 A's, right? When we participate in Pride, when we have social marketing campaigns that, you know, let people know where they can go obtain PrEP and condoms and services across New York City, we're really increasing the availability, accessibility, and acceptability of condoms in New York City. So when we became part of that unit, I became the director of that unit, and Ilona was the assistant director, became the director of NYCAP. Like it really, for us, it was kind of full circle, right? Or deputy director, sorry. One of the things that's really important is the idea that like we can, it's not just siloed the work, right? It's not just condom distribution in a condom distribution program, but that it touches so many different things. And being able to touch social marketing and community engagement officially now was something that really expanded our brand. And one of the things that I always say, right, is that the brand is really most important. I say this in when we do Condom Economics 101, when we do our condom distribution as the Structural Intervention Regional Institute. If someone sees the NYC Condom brand and their thought is not, oh, let me get a whole bunch. Their thought is like, I don't like them, right? But then they think about their preferred safer sex methodology. whether it's another condom brand, whether it's a birth control pill, whether it's taking PrEP, whatever it is, then the program has won, right? It doesn't matter whether they take our product. The idea of availability, accessibility, and acceptability is the idea that someone sees a brand, a product, and still does something in that vein, even if they're not like living up to that product, right? And if that product doesn't live up to their expectations, they're still able to say, okay, oh well, I ran out of Trojans, right? I need to go get them. I don't want those NYCs, you know. Or, oh, let me get some extras just in case, right? Even though my favorite is the, kimono. So that we always say our program has won. And so we really learned that in working in community engagement and doing our social marketing work, because at the end of the day, one of the things that's really important is the idea that we continue to improve the visibility of the condoms, which for us increases acceptability, right? Where people will accept free government products that everyone thinks Ilona and I personally make in our basements, but I promise you that we don't. They're purchased just like CVS purchases them. We just ask for a special logo. So when COVID hit, we were pretty devastated, not only because, we were pivoting, doing so many things, and also truthfully afraid to die, but the idea, right, that so many of our keystone activities in which we're able to give out large quantities of product to people and answer their questions in mass was gone. And that was Pride. That's in New York, there's 5 official prides, 1 for each borough. And yes, Staten Island gets a pride. But then there's also, we only have so many weekends in June, right? So Pride in New York City really goes until August. Sometimes September. We've been really exhausted when it's like goes into September. But yeah, sometimes September, because then there's Harlem Pride and Black Pride and Youth Pride Fest. And so Pride is really important. Then there are the National Awareness Days. National Latino AIDS Awareness Day is a huge one for us. National HIV AIDS. Aging Day is huge. So all of these events, not being able to participate in them, they stopped our ability to expand the 3As outside of NYCAP programming itself. Additionally, social marketing is still on hold in New York City. There are only really campaigns coming out that have to do with COVID. There's been a few that have been able to slip in, a smoking campaign, I think an alcohol campaign, but those were like basically completed by the time COVID started 2 years ago. So we're talking about nothing has been able to even be like developed, right? So we're talking about Pride in COVID. The last Pride we had participated in was World Pride. So like we just got off a high of like 50 years of Stonewall. We saw 250,000 people just at the parade, and we were like, what are we going to do? So for those of you who know Dr. Dimitri Daskalakis, he was our AC at the time, our assistant commissioner, and then became our deputy commissioner, and he is now leading HIV at the CDC. But he has always been, he's here on the right-hand side in his U=U shirt and his leather hat. He was our virtual DJ. And he DJ'd for us for 45 minutes. And then DJ Byrell the Great, who's a famous Kiki Ball and House Ball DJ, we were able to contract and connect with him. And he also DJ'd. They went back and forth from house ball voguing and also like dance music. And we had a virtual Pride, and we had all these people like commenting. We were putting information into the feed as well. So like New York City is still here. We know COVID, so we had our planned programmed language in. If you need access to condoms during this time, please go to the health map to find out where you can go. We had just launched door to door. We put in the link to door in the comments while we were running it. If you need condoms, order to an address, please click here. So it was active. It was active outreach, active accessibility and availability information while this was going on. But my favorite part, transparently, is that Dr. Daskalakis' husband, Michael, did a full fashion show for the whole hour and walked back and forth, changed his outfit at least 12 times, and really gave us the Pride vibes that we needed. Also, NYC Health Pride, if you're on here, I love you, but they had a competing DJ at the same time, which was not originally scheduled. And so we had 55 people that watched it live, and they had 29. Just saying, don't compete with us. Pride in 2021 looked a little bit different, right? Why did it look different? Obvious, right? We had a vaccine. We were able to go outside. We were not quarantined. We weren't under a curfew. It was like a whole new world, like Ariel, like la la la, but not really. There was no Pride fests, there were no like tabling going on, and there was no official parade. So there was a very small parade. You see, Dimitri was actually asked to be Grand Marshal, and there was 10 staff that were allowed to march. Heritage of Pride, who runs Pride, NYC Pride in New York City, asked us to participate. It was really, this was visual, right? This was to show the community that we were here, even though we were not here in the same space that we were able to be in years past. One of the things that was very prominent for us was that they made like a pop-up parade and an interactive Google map, right? And what they did was they showed on the map where those participating were and what they were doing, right? And so we were able to open the Chelsea Sexual Health Clinic to provide COVID testing and COVID vaccine and STI testing for Pride weekend. And then what we did was we also did tabling outside. And so we couched those together and also decorated the Chelsea building in the Progress Pride flag. So, you know, we were not in the completely virtual space that we once were in 2020, but we were kind of half virtual, half not, because folks only were able to find us by getting on the health map because there was no apps like actual parade. So folks were walking and being sent from one place to another. And there were about 20 pop-ups around Manhattan that were providing health services. And we had the honor to be asked to be one of them. For National Latino AIDS Awareness Day, which occurs in October 15th specifically, the year before we had something that we were incredibly proud of was we had a quinceañera or quinceañero, quinceañerex. And so we had, it was called Tus Quince, and it was a celebration of the rite of passage amongst Latinos and Latinas for your 15th birthday. And what we did was we made it an X event, so Tus Quince, and we just celebrated anyone and everyone who never had the opportunity to participate in that, Latino or not, it didn't matter. What we had was a virtual in-person panel, and then we had what was a fabulous quince. We were trying to do that again, and we were not able to. So we worked with an incredible artist named Ivan Monforte, and we had a virtual event really discussing the dual pandemics of HIV and COVID on Latina, Latino, and Latinx communities, but also a video montage of like what it meant for Latinidad in New York City specifically. So we had videos of a Puerto Rican woman who works in a social service organization making her grandmother's sancocho. We had a sound artist from Mexico. We had one of the self-proclaimed, what is her name? Lady Guacamole, and she was dressed in drag and sang a song in honor of her father. So it really was this beautiful opportunity where we had a panel discussing the dual pandemics of COVID and HIV-19 and how it had disproportionately affected those who were HIV positive in New York City and communities of color as it did everywhere else. But we spoke about New York and then ended it with homage to the Latinx community. World AIDS Day is another huge event in New York City where we're part of a large steering committee that works to highlight all of the work that is done by communities and not only honor those who have passed, but look towards the future and look to see a world without HIV, and not only without HIV, but with everyone in care, and a world where everyone can move forward without stigma, homophobia, and all of the obias that we talk about. We couldn't do it in person, and so for 2 years straight, we did it 2 years straight, 2 years gaily forward. We did it virtually, and we did it because there was no space in New York City, truthfully, that was willing to host over 500 people, which is the minimum number of people that participate in World AIDS Day events in person. And so we put together all of, the city, the state, and the Fed talking head beginnings, right? But then we also were able to get videos from folks that would usually perform on stage, and we had the opportunity to have them do their performances. One of the funny ones about 2021, I'll make you laugh. I was asked to honor a few people, and we were still home, and I couldn't find a space that I felt was like really impactful. So I like went in my backyard, and in my backyard on this very computer, I like videoed myself like 15 times, maybe more. And my husband, who owns a business and has an office in our attic, it was a really beautiful like November day, and he heard me because I am Puerto Rican and incredibly loud. I didn't think I was that loud, and he's like, "Girl, I heard you practicing that speech over and over again." I was like, "Really?" I was like mortified, but I then heard that it was like beautiful, and because it was outside and felt peaceful. So I was happy that I went outside and screamed my speech 15 times for my entire neighborhood to hear. But Patrick will be sharing these slides with everyone afterwards. And please, you'll see that all of them have the virtual link where you can actually go view it. And I offer anyone the opportunity who wants to just say something uplifting and inspiring, please feel free to take a look at both programs. They're quite beautiful. So what do we do now? Where do we go? We've like looked back, we've seen what we have done in crisis and what we have done as we have come out of crisis and what we were able to do. As Ilona said, I'm still incredibly proud that June 9th was the date that we launched door to door, even though it was like a full like 3 months after we were sent home. That's probably the fastest programming the city has ever seen. Like that's like lightning fast for the city. So although we were so pained, we knew that people needed it, right? And we call it door to door specifically, right? Because we don't call it home to home. Why? Because we're not assuming that anyone is ordering it to their home always, right? They're ordering it to an office, to a location that makes sense for them. And we're like proud that even in crisis of trying to push that through, we were able to think about that transparently and make sure that we weren't, just slapping things together for the sake of saying that we did something. We did it, honoring community and also listening and hearing what we could hear from community. So we're trying to start our mechanisms to restart door to door. Community engagement continues to still be on hold for many things, but we did participate in Staten Island Pride, Harlem Pride, Manhattan Pride, and we're waiting on Bronx Pride and Black Pride. The World AIDS Day, we are working with the steering committee of the Ending the Epidemic Coalition to see what they would like to do. And we host something called the Red Ball, which I didn't get a chance to touch on because we had to cancel it for the last 2 years, but it's the Remembering, Empowering, and Doing Ball. It's actually the first government-led Kiki House Ball ever, I think. We're on our 6th or 7th year. We're continuing to work on with our colleagues who update the health map to make sure our location services are as up to date as they are, so that folks, it just keeps expanding back to the robust 700 plus network that it once was. And then we're continuing to rely heavily on our condom contracted partners to make sure that they're providing condoms in the communities most heavily impacted by HIV and other diseases, as Ilona spoke of, as we try to rebuild our networks. So if anyone wants to order safer sex products or wants to ask questions, you can send us an email, Ilona and I'll be happy to share our personal email. And that's it, folks.